Joy Hofmeister, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Pleasure to be with you.
Let's start. You're a week and a half in. Can you characterize the state of the Department of Education right now?
Well, it's a time of transition, and of course that's a natural occurrence when you have a change in administration. We are conducting a capacity review of the agency, and that will be complete in mid-February.
What is that capacity review?
Well, it's really looking at where there may be gaps in the services that are needed to provide the kind of support we need to provide schools, and looking at those different departments that service the school districts and looking to see where we need to provide an increase in staff or a shift in resources, making certain that we are really ready to roll and be prepared for implementation of sound reform, as well as those decisions that are going to have to be made by leaders, and so really bringing in new leadership.
If you had to say it on a scale from 0 to 10, 10 being the absolute most efficient, best Department of Education you could have, 0 being the absolute worst Department of Education you could have right now, where do you think Oklahoma's ranks from 0 to 10?
If I were ranking our current state at the State Department of Education, I would definitely put it in the lower quartile. We have a lot of work to do. I ran because we had failed leadership, and certainly the agency is working hard with those who are here, but there are many vacancies. Of the 300 positions, there are at least 45 vacancies right now. So we are not operating in any way at full capacity, and having a capacity review is important, and that's what we're doing right now. We need to meet the needs in a better way.
There were a lot of folks who are very anti-Janet Barisi. They were very polarized against her. Now that you come in, is there a lot of pressure to be everything that Janet Barisi was not?
I'm focusing on being myself, and that is a leader that's inclusive and collaborative. I want to learn and understand through the eyes of a teacher what they face in the classroom every day. I also want to understand what the needs are of district leaders. You know, in the battle for excellence in the classroom, teachers are on the front lines, and their school leaders and superintendents are like battalion commanders in that army. If we don't have effective communication, we are not going to make the kinds of great gains in the classroom that we all want to achieve.
I've seen you participate in those online chats with Okla Ed. You get a lot of interesting folks on those chats, many that have very strong positions on one side or the other. How do you sift through parental groups, organizational groups who all have very loud voices for one thing or another? Mm-hmm. How do you sift through that and make a message that's clear and inclusive for everybody in the education community?
Well, first of all, I think it is important to at least read all of those comments and to listen, in a sense, virtually. I tried to focus comments on what we have in common. We're not going to agree on everything, but we need a leader at the top modeling inclusive and collaborative leadership, recognizing that every stakeholder has a different perspective. But as we move forward, I'm going to make decisions based on what's best and what works for Oklahoma school children.
Let's talk about standards. You come in after Common Core has been repealed. Mm-hmm. You have a new PASS standards in a place now, or not new, but the old PASS standards, I should say. And you have now a task of bringing in these new standards, writing these new standards. And that comes with a whole set of challenges. How do you effectively write standards that are productive and right for Oklahoma's children, all the while dealing with trying to, I guess, in the way the law was written, stay away from Common Core?
We are going to have a different way of moving forward if we want to lift out of the bottom of the list that we continue to find ourselves in Oklahoma. So it starts by looking at states that have had successful standards. I'm looking at the NAEP scores. That's a national assessment that is given to everyone, all the different states. It's a random sampling, but we are measured by NAEP. And if we look at those math and English language arts scores for states that have the highest performance and evaluate their standards and start there, we then can bridge from where we are now to where we need to be. And I think that's one of the strategies that we will use as we move forward.
Do you support Common Core?
Well, Common Core is basically standards, but I do not, and I did not support Common Core. I do support higher standards, and Common Core is not the end-all, be-all. It is one way, but it's not the way we have determined is best in Oklahoma. I am against the federal overreach that was really part of Common Core, and I want to respect the fact that Oklahomans need to have confidence in standards, but my focus really is on results for kids. So we've got to change what we're doing. Where we are now is not good enough.
Let me move to testing. What's the right way to effectively test a student?
We have to strike a balance. We need tests. Tests are tools. They inform instruction. They guide a teacher to know what to do next to best meet individual needs. What we have currently is a climate of over-testing. We are really, I think, focused on just what's on that test and test prep. If you're testing, you're not learning. We will make greater gains academically when we increase time on instruction. So I would say have a solution for that, and it is to look at the end of instruction exams. There are 7. I would like to see that reduced to 1, and instead of 7 end of instruction exams that we give in high school and some in middle school, we would reduce that to 1, the ACT.
What's something that you would really like parents and teachers to know about Joy Hofmeister that they might not already know?
Well, I'm also a parent. I'm a mom of 4 grown kids who all attended public school from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade right here in Oklahoma. So I'm an Oklahoma parent who has lived it and experienced this as well. I know what it means to volunteer. I'm also a business owner, and I understand that we do need to have more efficiencies and we need to be more effective with the resources that we have. But it starts with great teachers in the classroom. They make the greatest impact on student learning. So my focus this legislative session is on increasing the teacher compensation and bringing that to the regional average. Also, increasing the number of instructional days. We really are the lowest, one of the lowest in the country on instructional days with our academic calendar. If we want to lift out of the bottom of some of these lists, we're going to have to make sure that we have the instructional days that are also comparable with those states that provide higher on that academic list, and that requires increased instruction days. What I'm proposing is 5 new instructional days, $5,000 in teacher compensation in 5 years. We're calling that hashtag OK High Five. And it's important that we can attract and retain top talent in Oklahoma. Our kids deserve it. No one's coming to the rescue. This is going to take the will of the legislature to recognize that we've got to invest in our teachers. We are losing them to other states and other industries. We're at a point of crisis with our teacher shortage, and if we don't get this figured out, our kids suffer. This means higher classroom, enrollment, less individualized instruction, and overall demoralized teacher base. So it's imperative for students that we address this problem.
This $5,000 for teachers, how do you pay for that in a budget year that's just, once again, we're seeing big problems, $300 million shortfall? How do you go in across the street and say, give me more money?
Well, it's about priorities, and there are funds available. We are going to make decisions about how the funds are appropriated. What I am asking for is that we invest in education, and if we don't, we are going to have a crisis on our hands like we would if we had crumbling bridges that we continued to ignore. At some point, it becomes far more expensive than to actually care for something. When you neglect it, the problem only escalates. We really are in that point of crisis right now with our teacher shortage. The pool of candidates are weakening. We have the issue of those that we invest in higher ed with schools of education, but then we lose those people that we invested in to other states. We're not just losing them to other states, we're losing them to other industries. And when we say that, sometimes people think that's oil and gas or real estate, banking, finance. In fact, it could be as simple as the fast food chain down the street. We came across Chipotle, and they have a little brochure that illustrates this point sitting on the counter with their career path that they're tracking. And what we found there is after about 3 to 4 years, an apprentice level employee makes more money at Chipotle than a teacher with a PhD in Oklahoma and 25 years experience. We cannot continue down that path. And the time is now. We have to invest. We make decisions on how that money will be appropriated, and that determines the priority that we will really have throughout the state. So I am asking for bold leadership by our legislature.
When you look at reappropriation, where do you see money coming from to pay for it? What gets cut?
Well, really part of the issue is we have an ad valorem reimbursement, which means that the government has chosen to give a discount, in a sense, to incentivize business to come or to develop within our state. And that's a good thing. But yet there is a problem when that tips out of balance and we aren't able to keep up with the obligations that are then due to be reimbursed to school districts. So this continues to be a growing issue, and so we would just ask for a re-examination of those and maybe a trim so that we could have some balance here. But it's going to only be accomplished with a plan. So I'm proposing a 5-year plan. I'm not asking to be at the regional average today, but I am asking that we have a plan in place to achieve that within 5 years.
This may be a follow-up on that, but what's the one thing that bounces around your head when you get a chance to sit down on the couch at night and you're trying to decompress and relax? What's that one issue that's still up there?
Results for students. Everything that we do has to be filtered through that aim. What will the result be with this action for student achievement? Higher education attainment is the goal. Our governor has made that her goal this year. That is right in sync with what I want to do as well. So again, this comes down to the strategy on how we solve it. We have to increase time on instruction, reduce time in test prep or time on tests, and then take the money that we are spending. For instance, the end of instruction exams cost over $5 million to give. No one looks at that at higher education. They are not providing value after you graduate. If we gave the ACT to all of our students, it would cost $1.5 million. Now that's an enormous savings, and we can make those kinds of better decisions to be effective and I think more responsible with taxpayer dollar, but also achieve the aim of higher student outcomes. We would see the scores lift throughout our state if we focused our attention there, and we would also see direct economic impact individually to students with scholarship opportunities. It just makes sense.
One last question for you. When you finally step out of office, whenever that might be, what will you look back on this and say, I was a success because I did what?
Where we will measure success is with students and the achievement. We have to close the achievement gap. We have students that are graduating that are not ready to have successful entrance into college without need for remediation. We will see us minimize the number of dropouts, increase our graduation rate, and we have set goals with the governor's office as well as within the department to achieve that. So you start with the goal in mind, you have a plan to get there, you advocate for what you need to be successful with that plan, and then you have to stand with people. If you are going to be a leader, you have to recognize you can't lead if no one's following. So my focus right now is to spend the time investing in relationships, listening to community leaders, listening to our parents, our teachers, and when we understand how their needs can be met through the service of the department, then we are one step closer to being able to achieve the goal, which is higher student attainment in academics.
Joy Hofmeister,
Thank you
so much for your
Appreciate
time. Let's
it.
talk again soon. Thanks so much.
Will do. Thanks.